A human crashed on a planet where survival meant killing or being killed. No guns, no tech, just bones and rage. Lieutenant Ethan Cross walked off that Warworld 3 years later carrying a sword made from predator spines. The blade cut through alien armor like paper. The galaxy called it impossible. But here's what they didn't tell you. That sword wasn't just a weapon. It was proof that humans don't need technology to dominate. We adapt, we hunt, we win. And the aliens who captured Ethan? They regret it. You're about to discover 3 things that will change how you see human survival. First, how Ethan turned a death sentence into a hunting ground. Second, the biological secret hidden inside predator bones that made his sword unbeatable. And third, the moment the entire alien council realized they'd made a terrible mistake. This isn't about luck. It's about what happens when you strip a human down to nothing and expect them to die quietly. They expected a corpse. They got a legend. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Ethan Cross wasn't supposed to be on Kragan 7. He was a scout pilot for the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. His job was simple. Map asteroid fields. Report back. Stay safe. But space doesn't care about your job description. His ship took damage during a surprise ambush by the Vrexian Clans. These weren't your typical pirates. The Vrexians were apex predators who controlled 12 star systems. They captured aliens for sport. They dropped them on warworlds and watched them die. Ethan's escape pod crashed on Kragan 7. The planet was a Vrexian hunting preserve. No rescue, no communication, just endless red forests filled with creatures designed to kill. Here's the twist. The Vrexians didn't just drop prey on this planet. They removed all advanced technology. No energy weapons, no fabricators, no survival kits. You arrived with clothes and maybe a knife. Ethan had nothing. His pod burned on impact. He crawled out with burns on his arms and one question pounding in his head. How do you survive when everything wants you dead? Most species lasted 3 days. Humans were supposed to be weak, slow, fragile. The Vrexians bet Ethan wouldn't last a week. They were wrong. The first night, Ethan heard something moving through the trees. It sounded like metal scraping stone. He climbed a rock formation and waited. Dawn revealed the hunter, a razorback drake, 3 meters tall, 6 legs, exoskeleton harder than titanium, claws that could shred trees. The galaxy knew these things as unkillable. Ethan studied it for 2 days. He watched how it moved, where it slept, what it ate. He learned its patterns like a scientist documenting a specimen. Then he killed it, not with strength, with patience. He lured it into a ravine using his own blood as bait. The creature charged. Ethan triggered a rock slide he'd prepared for 18 hours. 3 tons of stone crushed the drake's legs. It took Ethan 4 hours to finish the job with a sharpened rock. But here's what changed everything. When Ethan carved into that drake, he noticed something strange. The bones weren't normal. They had a crystalline structure inside. They were light but impossibly strong. They held an edge when sharpened. Ethan sat in that ravine covered in alien blood and realized something profound. He didn't need rescue. He needed tools. And this planet was full of them. Now here's where things get really interesting. Ethan spent the next 6 months hunting every predator on Kragan 7, not for food, for materials. He discovered that razorback drakes weren't the only creatures with unique biology. The planet was an evolutionary arms race, frozen in time. Every predator had developed extreme adaptations to survive. The spine stalkers had vertebrae that flexed like cables but snapped back with devastating force. Ethan used them for bowstrings. The shadow raptors had hollow bones filled with a gel that absorbed kinetic energy. Perfect for armor plating. But the real treasure was the apex serpent. This creature ruled the northern mountains. 15 meters long. Scaled hide that deflected energy weapons. fangs that injected venom capable of dissolving metal. The Vrexians avoided these things. They were too dangerous even for them. Ethan tracked one for 3 weeks. He learned it hunted during electrical storms. The creature used lightning to stun prey. It moved through the rocks like liquid shadow. Most victims never saw it coming. Ethan saw it coming. He built a trap using metal salvage from his crashed pod. He positioned it on a ridge during storm season. When lightning hit, the metal conducted electricity straight into a pool of water the serpent used as a hunting ground. The creature thrashed for 6 minutes before it stopped moving. Ethan harvested its spine over 4 days. Each vertebra was the size of his fist. Inside, he found a mineral composite unlike anything he'd seen. It was organic but structured like a manufactured alloy. He carved off a piece and tested it against drake bone. The apex serpent material was 40% harder. It held a sharper edge, and it had a peculiar quality. It stayed cold. No matter how much Ethan worked it, the bone never heated up. This meant no thermal expansion, no warping. A blade made from this would maintain its shape under any condition. Ethan spent 2 months designing his weapon. He studied blade geometry using knowledge from human history. Katanas, longswords, machetes. He combined principles into one design. The spine became the core. He layered drake bone around it for structural support. He used spine stalker vertebrae to create a flexible hilt that absorbed shock. The guard came from a shadow raptor skull plate. The handle was wrapped in sinew and leather from 6 different creatures. He sharpened it using crushed crystal from cave formations, 3,000 strokes per edge. He tested the balance daily, adjusted the weight distribution, refined every angle. The result was a blade 90 centimeters long, curved slightly for slashing power, weighted perfectly for his grip, sharp enough to split falling leaves. But Ethan didn't just make a sword. He made a statement. He carved words into the blade in English. Survival is mandatory. Now here's the part the Vrexians didn't expect. Ethan didn't just survive. He thrived. He built a shelter using predator bones as framework. He created tools from claws and teeth. He made clothing from hides that regulated temperature. He developed water filtration using natural materials. Other prey species lasted days. Ethan had been on Kragan 7 for 14 months, and he was just getting started. The Vrexians monitored the planet with orbital sensors. They watched prey animals die. They watched species fight each other. They watched Ethan hunt, and they started to worry. One Vrexian commander named Thrak reviewed the footage. He saw Ethan take down creatures that had killed dozens of aliens. He saw the human learn, adapt, improve. Thrak made a decision. He sent down 3 Vrexian hunters to eliminate the problem. Big mistake. But if you think that's crazy, wait until you hear this. The Vrexian hunters arrived in stealth pods. They were elite warriors. Each had killed over 100 prey across 12 worlds. They carried plasma lances and neural disruptors. They had armor that camouflaged them perfectly. They gave Ethan 48 hours to live. Ethan killed the first hunter in 6. He'd been tracking their landing for 3 days. The stealth pods weren't as quiet as the Vrexians thought. Ethan heard the atmospheric entry. He marked the landing zone. He studied their movement patterns. The first hunter moved alone through the red forest. He was confident, careless. He didn't understand what he was hunting. Ethan waited in the trees using a climbing technique he'd learned from watching tree-dwelling predators. He stayed downwind. He controlled his breathing. He became part of the environment. When the hunter passed beneath him, Ethan dropped. The sword went through the Vrexian's neck before he could scream. The blade cut through armor designed to stop plasma. The bone edge found gaps the designers never anticipated. Ethan took the hunter's equipment, analyzed it, destroyed what he couldn't use. The plasma lance became a trap component. The armor sensors told him where the others were positioned. The second hunter died in his sleep. Ethan crept into their camp using shadow raptor movement patterns. Silent, patient, deadly. The sword moved twice. 2 bodies. No alarm. The third hunter realized what happened at dawn. He found his partners and panicked. He called for extraction immediately. Ethan intercepted the transmission. He'd learned enough Vrexian language from studying their equipment. He understood one phrase clearly. "The human is hunting us." The third hunter barricaded himself in a cave. He had supplies for a week. He had weapons. He had training. Ethan had time. He spent 3 days making the hunter paranoid. He left signs around the cave. Claw marks, blood trails. Strange sounds at night. He was using psychological warfare tactics. On the 4th day, the hunter broke. He ran from the cave firing wildly. Ethan wasn't where he expected. The sword ended it quickly. But here's what changed everything. Ethan didn't just kill the hunters. He took their communication equipment back to his shelter. He studied it for weeks. He couldn't use it to call for rescue. The Vrexians had it locked down. But he could listen. Ethan heard everything. He learned the Vrexians had a council meeting scheduled. They were discussing whether to terminate the Kragan 7 program. 3 dead hunters was embarrassing, expensive, bad for their reputation. Thrak argued for keeping the program open. He wanted revenge. He wanted to send an entire squadron to kill the human. Another council member disagreed. Her name was Silrith. She was older, wiser. She'd been studying Earth species for decades. She said something that made Ethan smile. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. Humans don't just survive. They dominate. This one has turned your Warworld into his training ground. If you send more hunters, you're not teaching him a lesson. You're teaching him war." The council voted. The program stayed open, but they added a new rule. No more interference. Let the planet kill the human naturally. Ethan heard this and made his own decision. He wasn't waiting for natural causes. He was taking the fight to them. He spent the next year hunting every apex predator on Kragan 7. He mapped the entire planet. He created weapon caches in strategic locations. He built backup shelters. He trained daily with his sword. He stopped being prey. He became the apex predator. The Vrexians watched through their sensors. They saw their most dangerous creatures fall. They saw Ethan's kill count climb. 50 predators, 100, 200. Species that had survived for millions of years went extinct. And Ethan's sword? It never dulled, never broke. The bone composite was unlike anything in the galaxy. It had properties that scientists couldn't explain. Some Vrexians started calling it the Ghost Blade. They said it could cut through anything. They said the human moved like death itself. Thrak stopped watching the feeds. He couldn't sleep. He kept seeing footage of Ethan standing over dead predators. That human smile, that terrible confidence. Silrith watched everything. She compiled reports. She documented every kill, every adaptation, every innovation. She wrote one sentence in her final report. "We didn't create a test subject. We created a weapon." This brings us to the most shocking discovery of all. Year 3 on Kragan 7 changed everything. Ethan had eliminated most apex predators. The ecosystem was collapsing. Prey animals multiplied without natural controls. The planet's balance was breaking. The Vrexians faced a choice: abandon the planet or intervene. They chose intervention, but not the kind Ethan expected. A Vrexian diplomatic ship entered orbit. They broadcast a message in English. They wanted to negotiate. Ethan didn't trust them, but he was curious. He'd been alone for 3 years. He'd spoken to no one. The isolation was crushing. He agreed to a meeting. Neutral ground, a clearing near the equator. Silrith came down alone. No weapons, no guards, just an old Vrexian female carrying data tablets. She sat across from Ethan and said something he didn't expect. "You've proven your point. Humans are survivors. We understand now. I'm here to take you home. Ethan looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. Why would I trust you? Silreth smiled. It was a strange expression on a Vrexian face. Because I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to help me. She showed him the data tablets. They contained information about human prisoners across Vrexian space. Hundreds of them, captured during border skirmishes, held in labor camps, forced to work until they died. The Vrexian government didn't advertise this. It was a secret program. Silreth had spent 20 years documenting it. She wanted it ended. You survived the impossible, she said. That makes you valuable. The Council fears you now. They'll listen to demands from someone they fear. Ethan processed this. 3 years of survival, 3 years of rage, 3 years of waiting for a moment that mattered. This was it. What do you want me to do? Silreth's answer was simple. Come to the homeworld. Bring your sword. Show them what happens when humans are pushed too far. Make them afraid enough to release the prisoners. It was insane. One human walking into the Vrexian capital, surrounded by millions of aliens who wanted him dead. But Ethan had stopped being sane after year 1. He agreed. The journey took 3 weeks. Ethan stayed in a diplomatic vessel. He refused to remove his sword. He refused to sleep without posting his own watch. He trusted no one. Silreth respected that. She gave him space. She answered his questions. She showed him evidence of every claim she made. When they reached the homeworld, Ethan saw something that made his blood run cold. The Vrexian capital was built on the backs of slave labor. Hundreds of species worked in factories, built monuments, served the ruling class, and yes, there were humans. Ethan saw them through the ship's windows, thin, scarred, broken. Something inside him snapped. Not rage, something colder. Purpose. The council meeting was held in a massive arena. 10,000 Vrexians attended. This was theater. They wanted to show the human his place. They wanted him to beg. Ethan walked into that arena wearing armor made from predator, bones. He carried his sword openly. He didn't bow. He didn't kneel. He stood in the center and waited. Thrak spoke first. You killed our hunters. You destroyed a multi-million credit program. You owe us compensation. Ethan's response was simple. You owe me 3 years. The arena went silent. Ethan continued. You dropped me on that planet to die. I didn't. You sent hunters to kill me. They died. You watched me become something you fear, and now you want me to apologize. He drew his sword. The bone blade reflected light in strange ways. The entire arena saw it clearly. This blade is made from predators you couldn't kill. I killed them with rocks and patience. I survived in conditions that would break your best warriors. And I did it without technology, without help, without mercy. He pointed the sword at Thrak. You have human prisoners. Release them, all of them. Or I'll show this council what 3 years on a Warworld taught me. Thrak laughed. You're one human. We are millions. You think your bone sword frightens us? Ethan smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. I think you sent 3 hunters to kill me and got back 3 bodies. I think you watch your senses every day wondering when I'll hunt something that matters. I think you're terrified because you finally understand what humans really are. He walked toward Thrak. Guards moved to intercept. Ethan's sword moved 3 times. 3 guards hit the ground. Their armor was cut clean through. The blade didn't even slow down. The arena erupted in chaos. Silreth stepped forward. Enough. The human has proven his point. Release the prisoners or face consequences. The galactic community is watching. This entire meeting is being broadcast. Thrak looked around. He saw the cameras. He saw the fear in the council's eyes. He saw Ethan standing calmly over 3 guards. He made the call. The prisoners would be released. So what does all this mean for us today? Ethan's victory on the Vrexian homeworld changed galactic politics overnight. Human prisoners were released within 48 hours. 372 people walked free from labor camps. They returned to Earth as heroes. And Ethan, he became something else entirely. The galaxy now understood something crucial about humanity. We adapt faster than any other species. Strip us of technology and we build new tools. Put us in impossible situations and we find solutions. Try to break us and we become stronger. This wasn't luck. This was biology, mixed with culture, mixed with pure stubbornness. Think about it from an alien perspective. Most species in the galaxy evolved in stable environments. They developed intelligence to solve consistent problems. They created technology to overcome specific challenges. Humans evolved during ice ages. We survived extinction events. We crossed oceans on wooden rafts. We climbed mountains that killed most who tried. We looked at fire and said, let's control that. We're not stronger than other species. We're not smarter, but we're more adaptable than almost anything alive. Ethan proved this. He took biological materials and created weapons that rivaled advanced technology. He studied predators and learned their patterns. He turned psychology into warfare. He transformed a death sentence into a survival masterclass. Now the galaxy watches Earth differently. The Vrexians aren't the only species who dropped prisoners on Warworlds. The practice was common. Cheap entertainment, easy disposal of unwanted populations. After Ethan, 3 other species shut down their programs immediately. 2 more face internal pressure to end the practice. The Galactic Council is debating new prisoner rights legislation. 1 human changed policy for billions of beings. But here's what most people don't discuss. Ethan didn't just save prisoners, he created a new industry. Within 6 months, 12 different human companies started producing replica bone swords. They used advanced material science to recreate the properties Ethan discovered. The weapons became status symbols. Military units requested them. Collectors paid fortunes. The original sword? Ethan kept it. He refused all offers to sell. He said it represented something you can't buy. Survival. The sword now sits in a secure location known only to Ethan and a few trusted allies. But its legacy lives everywhere. Human military training now includes primitive weapons courses. Survival programs teach adaptability over technology reliance. Ethan started something bigger than himself. The alien perspective shifted too. Before Kragan 7, humans were seen as ambitious but fragile. We had good technology but weak bodies. We talked tough but died easily. Now, we're respected. Sometimes feared, often admired. Silreth wrote a book about the experience. The Kragan 7 Protocol, What Humanity Teaches About Survival. It became required reading in 6 alien military academies. She documented every stage of Ethan's adaptation, every kill, every innovation. Her conclusions surprised many aliens. She argued that humans don't survive despite our weaknesses. We survive because of them. Our fragile bodies forced us to develop tools. Our limited strength made us creative. Our short lifespans gave us urgency. Our emotional nature drove us to protect each other. She called it the human paradox. They are weak individually but unstoppable collectively. They fear death but court danger. They create beauty and destruction with equal passion. The galaxy still doesn't fully understand us, but they're trying now. Ethan's sword became a symbol. It appears in art, in stories, in political speeches. Different groups interpret it differently. Some see it as proof that natural solutions beat technology. Others view it as evidence that humans are natural warriors. A few consider it a warning about underestimating any species. Ethan himself stays quiet about the meaning. He did interviews for 6 months after returning to Earth. Then he disappeared. Rumor says he's training others. teaching survival skills, passing on knowledge from Krogan 7. He reportedly lives somewhere remote, somewhere he can practice what he learned. Some say he's preparing for the next challenge. Others think he just wants peace. Both might be true. The military offered him rank, multiple positions, command of survival training programs. He declined everything. He said his time serving was over, but he left behind detailed documentation, everything he learned on Krogan 7, every technique, every weapon design, every observation about alien biology. That information now lives in secured databases, available to human military personnel, classified but accessible when needed. The knowledge became Earth's insurance policy. If humans ever face another impossible situation, we have Ethan's playbook. And that sword, the one forged from predator bones, it proved something scientists still study. Organic materials can match synthetic technology under the right conditions. The bone composite Ethan used had properties that materials engineers are still trying to replicate perfectly. The crystalline structure, the thermal resistance, the edge retention. Nature built those properties through millions of years of evolution. Ethan recognized them in weeks. That's the real lesson. We're not just tool makers. We're problem solvers who see potential where others see limitations. Before we wrap up, there's one final thing you need to know. 2 years after returning to Earth, Ethan received a message. It came through encrypted channels, no sender identification, just coordinates and a date. He recognized the code. It was Vrexian diplomatic protocol. Silreth wanted to meet. Ethan traveled to the coordinates, a neutral space station in disputed territory. He brought his sword. Old habits die hard. Silreth was waiting in a private room. She looked older, tired. She smiled when Ethan entered. "Thank you for coming." Ethan sat down. "Why am I here?" Silreth pulled out a data chip. "Because the story isn't over, and you deserve to know the truth." She explained something that changed everything. The Vrexians didn't choose Krogan 7 randomly. That planet was engineered. The predators weren't natural evolution. They were designed. An ancient race called the Architects created warworlds across the galaxy. They tested species, documented survival strategies. They wanted to understand what separated survivors from victims. The Vrexians discovered Krogan 7 abandoned. They turned it into a hunting preserve without understanding its original purpose. They thought they controlled it. They were wrong. The planet was still active, still testing, still recording. When Ethan survived, the ancient systems activated. They documented everything. His strategies, his adaptations, his weapons. The data was transmitted somewhere beyond known space. Silreth found evidence in old Vrexian files. The transmissions continued for 3 years. Everything Ethan did was being watched. Not by the Vrexians, by the Architects. "What are they?" Ethan asked. "We don't know. They disappeared millions of years ago, but their technology is still active, still functioning, still gathering data." She showed him star maps. Dozens of warworlds scattered across the galaxy, all still operational, all still testing species who land on them. "You're not the first to survive one of these planets, but you're the first human, and the Architects are interested in that." Ethan processed this slowly. "What do they want?" Silreth's answer was uncertain. "We think they're cataloging survival strategies, studying how different species adapt. We don't know why. We don't know if they're coming back." She paused. "But there's something else. The bone materials you used? Those predators were designed to create weapons. The Architects wanted survivors to have tools. They wanted to see what species would build." Ethan looked at his sword, the blade he'd trusted for 3 years. "This was planned." "Not planned. Provided. The Architects seeded those planets with resources. They gave survivors options. What you did with them was your choice." Silreth stood up. "I'm telling you this because other humans are landing on warworlds. Not by accident. Some are volunteering. They want to prove themselves like you did. That's insane. That's humanity. You inspired something. Now others want to follow. They're testing themselves against impossible odds. She handed him the data chip. This contains everything we know about the architects, about the Warworlds, about what's really happening. I think humans need this information. You decide what to do with it. Ethan took the chip. Why me? Because you survived with honor. You didn't just kill. You learned. You adapted. You became something better. The galaxy needs more of that, especially if the architects return. Silreth left without another word. Ethan sat alone in that room for an hour. He thought about Kragan 7, about the 3 years of survival, about the sword in his hands. He thought about the bigger picture. An ancient race was watching, judging, recording, and humans had just entered their test. Ethan made a decision. He took Silreth's data to Earth Military Command. He briefed them on everything: the architects, the Warworlds, the volunteers risking their lives. Earth responded by creating the Warworld Initiative, a program to study these planets, to train specialists, to prepare humanity for whatever comes next. Ethan helped design the curriculum, but he didn't lead it. He said that job belonged to the next generation. He returned to his remote home. He hung his sword on the wall. He wrote everything down in detailed journals. And he waited. Because deep down, Ethan knew something others didn't. The architects were testing species for a reason, and when they returned, humanity would need more than bone swords. We'd need what Ethan learned on Kragan 7. Adaptability, creativity, the refusal to quit when everything says you should. The galaxy learned that humans are survivors. The architects were about to learn we're much more than that. If this opened your eyes to what humans are capable of, let's recap what we've discovered. A human named Ethan Cross was dropped on an alien warworld designed to kill. He survived 3 years by hunting apex predators and forging weapons from their bones. He created a sword that matched advanced technology using only natural materials. He killed elite alien hunters and forced an entire species to free human prisoners. And finally, he uncovered evidence that ancient beings are still testing galactic species through these warworlds. This isn't just a survival story. It's proof that humans adapt faster and more creatively than almost any species in the galaxy. When we're pushed to our limits, we don't break. We innovate. If this story inspired you, hit that subscribe button. We're covering more human achievements that changed the galaxy. Next video explores the human who revolutionized faster-than-light travel, using math everyone said was impossible. Drop a comment answering this. If you were stranded on Kragan 7, what Earth skill would you use first to survive? Hunting? Engineering? Medicine? I'm reading every response. And if you want to dive deeper into humanity's place in the galaxy, check out our deep research series on early human-alien conflicts. The link is in the description. These stories prove we're not just survivors, we're pioneers who refuse to accept limits. The galaxy underestimated us once. They won't make that mistake again. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.